Hello and thank you for joining me on Delicious by Debbie, and today I'm going to make some biscuits. I had made gravy, sausage gravy for my husband, and I had one tube of the Grand's butter bud, and I had those already made and he had frozen them. They were in the freezer. So he's using those up, but he's going to need more biscuits because he still has several containers of gravy in the freezer. So I have two different recipes that I use. So today I'm going to do one, some other day I'll do my mother-in-law's, but this is a recipe that I like to use when my husband was actively ministering at a church. We did a lot of entertaining, had a lot of people over, and this would be kind of a Sunday favorite that I would make on Sundays. So I'm going to go ahead and make these today and have you with me. First of all, we need 2 cups of flour. So we'll go ahead and get that measured out. And I like to do the leveling with a knife. So there's 1 cup, and I need 1 more. Okay, there's 2 cups of flour. And I need 3 teaspoons of baking powder. So I have my baking powder in here. I need 3 teaspoons of that. I was interested how many people still have these old Tupperware containers, and I guess more of us than I thought still have these, and I don't think they still make them. All right, and I need 2 teaspoons of sugar. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix that up real good. That's the flour, the sugar, the baking powder, and the salt. The next is a stick of butter, and this is cold from the refrigerator, but I have cut it up into little chunks. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And we're going to use the pastry blender and get that all blended up. Now my other biscuit recipe that was my mother-in-law's uses shortening. This recipe uses butter. I'm going to mix that in just like I would if I was doing shortening in a pie crust. And I'll keep mixing this until I don't have any, let me see if I can get this any closer, any pieces of butter that would be any bigger than like a little pea. And that's coming along nicely, almost there. I would say that's pretty close to not having any pieces bigger than the size of a pea. Maybe this one on my pastry blender would, but we'll chop him up a little bit. Now this recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you want. I prefer in these biscuits to use buttermilk, and I have some I'd like to use up. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3/4 of a cup of the buttermilk. And once you get that poured in, you only want to mix it enough until the dry ingredients are all mixed. You don't want to just keep stirring and stirring and stirring and ruining the action of the baking powder. Just until the ingredients are mixed together and there's no dry ingredients laying around. this has come together nicely. Don't see any dry ingredients laying on the bottom. It's all mixed nicely together. So I'm gonna wash my hands a little bit. Then we'll put some flour on the counter here. And I'm gonna put the biscuit dough out onto the flour. And I just want to knead that a little bit in the flour. Not a lot. The less you handle the biscuit dough, the better it is. So I want to fold it over on itself. Fold it over on itself. Do that about 5 or 6 times. And that's what gives you nice layers in your biscuits. Okay, now I'm gonna flatten it out. Okay, about a 1/2 inch thickness is what we want. So I think we're about there. Okay, now I have a biscuit cutter. I'm gonna dip it into my flour to get it floured. Okay, I'm preheating my oven to 450. These bake in a hot oven. They bake for about 10 minutes. I have a cookie sheet here. There's 6 so far. And we'll knead this dough a little bit again. Flatten it out and get a few more. It's supposed to make 12, but I don't think I'm going to get 12, and that's okay. These will be nice size. Okay. That made 11 instead of 12, but some of my first ones were bigger. That's okay. Now before I bake these, I don't know what there is about it, but it does something to them. I'm putting them in the refrigerator on this tray, just like this, for about 10 minutes, and then I'll pop them into the hot oven, and I'll show you when they're done. So the biscuits are done, as you can see. I'm gonna put them out here on this cooling rack. I don't like to keep them on the pan. Obviously not all uniform in size, but that's okay. They'll taste just fine. All right. I am going to take one small one, the end here. This one didn't, this was the last of the dough that I tried to make into a biscuit. So I'm going to take it and cut it open. Let you see the nice flaky inside. I am not a big biscuit person, but I will eat one at Cracker Barrel if I have the Marion blackberry jam, and that's like eating a dessert. And I have some black raspberry jam from Walnut Creek, so I'm going to put a little bit on my biscuit and eat it while it's nice and warm. It's so warm, it just melted the butter perfectly. They're so nice and light and flaky. That is delicious, and I hope that you'll try it sometime. They're easy to make, and they're delicious.